Clara's hands shook as she stepped off the train into the Texas dust, her last dollar spent on the ticket that brought her here. The depot master had been clear: no work, no charity, no hope. Then she saw him, a man with storm-gray eyes and two hollow-faced children clinging to his shadow. "I need a wife who can teach reading," he said, no preamble, no kindness. "You need a roof. We marry today, or you're on the next train east." She had 30 seconds to decide. Her answer would change everything. If you want to see how a desperate schoolteacher became the fiercest mother in Texas, subscribe to this channel and follow this story to the very end. Comment what city you're watching from, so I can see how far Clara's tale has traveled. Clara Mae Thornton stood on the Red River Crossing Depot platform with exactly 14 cents in her reticule and nowhere left to run. The afternoon sun hammered down on her black morning dress, 3 months of wearing it in July. Heat had faded the fabric to charcoal gray, made the wool smell of sweat and desperation. She'd sold everything else: Michael's law books, her mother's silver. The wedding ring she'd worn for 18 months before pneumonia took him, and his family's patience ran out. "My son's widow has no claim on this household," Michael's mother had said, standing in the doorway of the Philadelphia townhouse like a sentry. "You brought no children, no dowry, nothing of value. I've purchased you a train ticket, Texas. My cousin runs a school there. Perhaps." Perhaps. That single word had carried Clara 1,500 miles west to this, a depot master who'd laughed when she asked about the teaching position. "School burned down 2 years back, miss. Ain't been rebuilt. You got other prospects." She didn't. Now she stood watching the train that had carried her here pull away black smoke against a sky too big, too empty. Philadelphia had been cramped streets and narrow houses. This was space that swallowed you whole. "You planning to stand there till sundown, ma'am?" Clara turned. A woman stood in the shade of the depot, overhang 50-something, weathered as old leather, dressed in men's trousers and a gun belt that looked entirely too comfortable on her hips. "I was told there might be work," Clara said. "Who told you that?" "Mrs. Eleanor Thornton, of Philadelphia." The woman spat tobacco juice into the dust. "Eleanor Thornton ain't set foot in Texas in 30 years. And she sure as hell don't know what work exists here." She looked Clara up and down. "You got skills besides standing around looking pitiful." Heat rushed to Clara's face. "I taught at the Winthrop Academy for Girls. Reading, writing, arithmetic, basic sciences. Can you shoot?" "I what?" "Shoot. A gun. Can you hit what you aim at?" "Of course not. I'm a teacher." "You were a teacher. Out here you're just another mouth that needs feeding." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Though I'll say this, Jack Reeves has been looking for someone to teach his young'uns. Been through 4 women in 2 years. None of 'em lasted." Clara's chest tightened with something that felt dangerously like hope. "Mr. Reeves runs a school." "Mr. Reeves runs the biggest cattle operation in 3 counties. His kids are wild as coyotes and twice as mean. His boy don't speak, his girl don't listen, and Jack himself is about as warm as a January creek." She paused. "But he pays fair, and he don't cheat. That's more than most can say." "How do I find him?" "You don't. He's coming here." The woman pointed to a cloud of dust rising on the eastern road. "That'll be him now, picking up supplies. You want work, you ask him yourself. But let me give you advice, Miss Teacher: Jack Reeves don't suffer fools, and he don't believe in second chances. You get 1 shot to convince him you're worth keeping. Don't waste it on pretty words." The dust cloud resolved into a wagon pulled by 2 bay horses, driven by a man who looked carved from the same hard rock as the landscape. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a battered hat pulled low over his eyes. 2 children sat beside him, a girl, maybe 11, staring straight ahead with her jaw set. A boy younger pressed against his father's side. The wagon pulled up to the depot. The man set the brake with economical movements, climbed down. "Joe," he said, nodding to the woman. "Jack." Joe gestured to Clara. Got someone here asking about work. The man Jack Reeves turned. His eyes were gray, the color of winter storms, and they assessed Clara in one sweep that made her feel weighed and found wanting. You the teacher Eleanor Thornton wrote about. Clara's surprise must have shown. Got her letter 3 weeks back, Jack said. Said she was sending a widow who needed work. Didn't say you'd actually show up. I need employment, Clara said, lifting her chin. Your associate mentioned you need someone to teach your children. I need someone who can survive on a ranch 60 miles from town, who can teach 2 children who don't want to learn, who can handle herself when I'm 3 days gone moving cattle. He stepped closer. You ever been on a ranch, Mrs. Thornton? No. Ever taught children who've seen their mother killed? The bluntness of it stole her breath. No, but I've taught. Ever gone a week eating nothing but hardtack and beans because the supply wagon didn't come? Mr. Reeves. Ever shot a rattlesnake, birthed a calf, ridden 40 miles in a day? No. Her hands clenched. But I can learn. Can't afford to teach you. Need someone who already knows. He turned away, done with her. Clara felt panic claw up her throat. This was it, her last chance, and it was walking away because she didn't know how to shoot snakes. I can read Latin and Greek, she said to his back. I can calculate compound interest in my head. I can recite every American president in order and tell you exactly how they died. I can teach your children history, literature, mathematics, sciences, everything they'd learn at the finest schools in Philadelphia. Jack stopped, didn't turn. And I can learn the rest, Clara pressed. I'm not afraid of hard work, Mr. Reeves. I'm only afraid of having nowhere to go. Silence. The wind kicked dust across the platform. Then Jack turned. My daughter's name is Emma. She's 11 and she's smarter than most adults I know. She runs my household because she had to. She don't trust strangers, and she don't forgive easy. He paused. My son's name is Samuel. He's 7. He ain't spoken a word since he watched Comanche raiders kill his mother 3 years back. Doctors say maybe he never will. Clara's throat tightened. I need someone to teach them reading and writing and all that book learning you're talking about, Jack continued. But more than that, I need someone to make them feel like children again instead of soldiers. Can you do that, Mrs. Thornton? Could she? She'd taught wealthy girls who worried about embroidery patterns. These were children who'd seen their mother murdered. I can try, she said. Trying ain't good enough. Then I'll succeed. Something flickered in those gray eyes. You're either brave or foolish. Desperate, Clara said. Desperate makes you both. Joe laughed a bark of sound. I like her, Jack. Jack ignored her. I can pay $30 a month room and board. You'll live at the ranch, teach the children 6 days a week. Sundays you can do what you like long as it don't interfere with chores. $30. More than she'd made in Philadelphia. There's one more thing, Jack said. This ain't Philadelphia society. You'll be living alone with me and my children 60 miles from town. People will talk. Some won't approve. I don't care what people think. You will when the preacher's wife won't speak to you in town. Clara thought of Margaret Thornton's cold rejection of Philadelphia society that had dropped her the moment Michael died. I've already been cast out by polite society, Mr. Reeves. I have nothing left to lose. Jack studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. We leave in an hour. Joe, can she stay with you till then? Suppose so. Good. Jack turned back to the wagon. Emma, Sam, come meet your new teacher. The children climbed down. Emma moved with careful precision, like someone who'd learned young that mistakes had consequences. Sam stayed half hidden behind his sister. This is Mrs. Thornton, Jack said. She's coming to the ranch. Emma's eyes, the same storm gray as her father's, fixed on Clara with unsettling intensity. We've had teachers before. I know. They all left. I won't. That's what the last one said. Emma's voice was flat. She lasted 3 weeks before she took the supply wagon back to town. Said we were uncivilized. Emma. Jack's voice held warning. It's true, Pa. Miss Henderson said Sam was possessed by demons because he don't talk. Said I was unnatural because I could read better than her. Clara knelt, bringing herself eye level with Emma. I don't believe in demons, and being smart isn't unnatural, it's a gift. Emma's expression didn't change. You won't last either. Maybe not, but I'll try my best. Your best won't be good enough. The girl turned away. Come on, Sam. The boy followed, but not before shooting Clara one quick, frightened glance. Jack sighed. She'll warm up. Will she? No, Joe said cheerfully. That girl's got a heart like a locked safe. You'll need dynamite to crack it. An hour later, Clara sat in the back of Jack's wagon, her small trunk beside her, watching Red River Crossing disappear behind them. The town wasn't much a main street with a saloon, a mercantile, a boarding house, and a church, but it was civilization. Every mile they traveled took her further from anything familiar. The landscape was brutal in its emptiness. Endless grass, occasional scrub trees, a sky so vast it made her dizzy. No buildings broke the horizon. No people. Just space. How far to your ranch? She asked. 3 hours in good weather, Jack said without turning. 4 if it rains. 3 hours. In Philadelphia, 3 hours could take you to New York. Here it barely got you home. Emma sat rigid beside her father, staring straight ahead. Sam was tucked against her side, his thumb in his mouth, despite being 7. Neither child had spoken since they left town. Clara tried anyway. Emma, your father said you enjoy reading. What's your favorite book? Silence. I'm particularly fond of Ivanhoe. Have you read it? More silence. Or perhaps you prefer poetry. I can recite most of Longfellow by heart. We don't need you to perform for us, Emma said, still not looking at her. Pa hired you to teach reading and writing, that's all. Emma. Jack's voice was quiet but firm. Mind your manners. Yes, sir. But the girl's spine stayed steel straight, her jaw set. This was a child who'd learned to build walls and had no intention of letting them down. Clara tried a different approach. Sam, do you like stories? The boy's eyes flickered to her, then away. I know some good ones. There's one about a boy who could talk to horses. Would you like to hear it? Sam's hand tightened on his sister's sleeve. He don't like strangers, Emma said. And he specially don't like people trying to make him talk. The last teacher kept asking him questions, pushing him, made him cry. Anger flashed through Clara. I'm not trying to make him talk. I'm just offering a story. He don't want your stories. Emma, that's enough, Jack said. But Pa? Enough. The girl fell silent, but Clara could feel hostility radiating from her like heat from a stove. They rode in silence for another hour. The sun climbed higher, turning the wagon into an oven. Clara's dress was soaked with sweat, her skin burning despite her bonnet. She'd never felt heat like this. Philadelphia summers were warm, but this was like being slowly roasted. Finally, a building appeared on the horizon. Adobe walls, timber roof, a wide porch. Outbuildings dotted around it, barn bunkhouse corrals. It looked solid, permanent, like it had grown from the earth. Welcome to Twin Oak Ranch, Jack said. The wagon pulled into the yard. A woman emerged from the house, the same woman from Town Joe. Beat you here, she called. Took the shortcut. Jack climbed down, then lifted Sam. Emma jumped down herself, already heading for the house. Emma, show Mrs. Thornton to her room, Jack said. The girl stopped, shoulders tensing. The room? Yes. Pa, that's... I know what room it is. Show her. Emma's face went white, then red. Yes, sir. Clara followed her into the house, immediately grateful for the thick adobe walls that kept the interior cool. The main room was kitchen and living space, combined a large table, worn chairs, a stone fireplace. Stairs led to the second floor. Emma climbed them without looking back. At the top, she opened a door. "This is your room." Clara stepped inside. It was simple: a bed, a dresser, a washstand, a window overlooking the prairie, and everywhere dust. The room hadn't been used in years. "This was Mama's room," Emma said quietly. "Pa locked it after she died. You're the first person he's let in." Understanding crashed over Clara. This wasn't just a room. This was a shrine, and Jack was giving it to her. "Emma, don't." The girl's eyes were hard. "Don't say you're sorry. Don't say you understand. You don't. You didn't know her. You don't know us. You're just someone Pa hired because he's desperate." "You're right. I didn't know her. But I lost someone too." "Your husband." "Yes." "Did you watch him die?" The question was brutal. "No. He was sick for 3 days, then gone." "Mama died screaming." Emma's voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it worse. "The Comanche came at dawn. Pa was out checking the North Range. By the time he got back, Mama was dead, and Sam hadn't spoken a word." Clara's legs felt weak. "Emma, I'm 11 years old and I've been running this house for 3 years because Pa can't bear to touch anything that was hers. I cook, I clean, I take care of Sam. I don't need a teacher. I need Pa to wake up and see that Mama's gone and she ain't coming back." Tears tracked down the girl's face, but her voice never wavered. "So you can sleep in Mama's room and teach us reading and take Pa's money. But don't pretend you're here to help. You're here because you got nowhere else to go." She turned and walked out, closing the door with careful control. Clara sank onto the bed, dust rising around her. The girl was right. She was here out of desperation, not nobility. She had nowhere else to go. But maybe that was enough. Maybe desperation could be transformed into purpose. She stood open the window and began unpacking her small trunk. If this was her room now, she'd make it hers. Dinner that night was silent and awkward. Joe had cooked beef stew and cornbread, and the food was good. But the tension around the table was suffocating. Jack ate methodically, saying nothing. Emma pushed food around her plate. Sam didn't eat at all, just stared at his bowl. Clara tried to make conversation. "This is excellent stew, Joe." "Thanks." More silence. "How large is the ranch, Mr. Reeves?" 2,000 acres along the Red River." "That's quite large." "It ain't small." Silence again. Finally, Jack set down his spoon. "Mrs. Thornton, we start early here. Breakfast is at dawn. You'll teach the children from 7 to noon, then again from 2 to 4. Afternoons they help with chores." "What kind of chores?" "Emma tends the chickens and helps with cooking. Sam feeds the horses and mucks stalls." He paused. "They're ranch children. They need to know how to work." "Of course, but they also need to be children." Jack's jaw tightened. "Out here being children is a luxury we can't afford. With respect, Mr. Reeves, children who don't play become adults who don't know how to live." "My children are alive. That's what matters." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Emma stood abruptly. "May I be excused, Pa?" "Yes." She left, taking Sam with her. Joe stood too. "I'll clean up. You two talk." When they were alone, Jack turned to Clara. "Mrs. Thornton." "Clara. If we're living in the same house, you should use my given name." "Clara, then." He paused. "I appreciate your concern for my children, but I know what's best for them." "Do you?" His eyes flashed. "Excuse me. Emma's running your household at 11. Sam hasn't spoken in 3 years. With respect, Mr. Reeves, I'm not sure your current approach is working." Dangerous ground. She could see anger building in his expression. But he only said, "What do you suggest?" "Let them be children for a few hours a day. Let Emma play instead of cooking. Let Sam draw or build things instead of working constantly. And when winter comes, and we're snowed in for weeks, When the cattle are dying and we need every hand working to save them, will playing help then? No, but neither will having two children so damaged they can't function as adults. Jack stood his chair scraping. You've been here 4 hours and you think you understand my children. I understand that they're hurting, and that hurt left untreated becomes poison. For a moment, she thought he'd fire her on the spot, send her back to town, back to nothing. Instead, he said, You have 1 month, Clara. 1 month to prove your methods work. If Emma's still hostile and Sam's still silent, we do things my way. And if they improve, then we'll talk. He walked out, leaving Clara alone in the kitchen. She'd been at Twin Oak Ranch for less than a day and had already made an enemy of her employer. But she couldn't back down. These children needed more than lessons. They needed healing. And if Jack Reeves couldn't see that, she'd have to show him. That night, Clara lay in Sarah Beth Reeves's bed, staring at the ceiling. Through the thin walls, she could hear Emma moving in the next room, pacing restless. Down the hall, Jack's door opened and closed. Checking on Sam, probably. This family was broken, held together by duty and routine, but with no joy, no warmth. Clara had come here desperate for work, for purpose, for a place to belong. She'd found a job. But she was beginning to realize she'd also found something more. A mission. These children, angry Emma, silent Sam, and their father, who was so locked in grief he couldn't see his children drowning, they needed someone to fight for them. Clara had been cast out, rejected, told she had no value. Maybe that freed her. Maybe having nothing left to lose meant she could risk everything. Tomorrow she'd start teaching. But she wouldn't just teach reading and writing. She'd teach them how to live again. And if Jack Reeves didn't like it, he'd have to fire her. But she wouldn't make it easy. Dawn came too early, announced by a rooster Clara wanted to strangle. She dressed quickly in the pre-dawn darkness, her fingers clumsy on the buttons of her second-best dress. The mirror showed a woman with shadows under her eyes and hair that refused to stay pinned. Downstairs, Joe was already cooking the kitchen, filled with the smell of coffee and frying bacon. You look like hell, Joe said cheerfully. I didn't sleep well. Sarah Beth's room's got ghosts. Most folks can feel 'em. Joe cracked eggs into a pan. You get used to it. Do you? No, but you pretend better. Jack came in from outside, his hat already dusty. He nodded to Clara, poured coffee, drank it standing. No good morning, no conversation. Just fuel and back to work. Emma appeared next, already dressed, her hair in a tight braid. She moved through the kitchen like she owned it, pulling out plates, setting the table with efficient movements. I can do that, Clara offered. I've been doing it for 3 years. I know where things go. Sam drifted in last, silent as smoke. He sat in his chair, hands folded in his lap, waiting. They ate in silence. Clara tried twice to start conversation, comments about the weather, questions about the ranch, but her words died in the awkward quiet. This family didn't talk. They coexisted. When breakfast ended, Jack stood. Emma? Sam, lessons start in 30 minutes. Mrs. Thornton will teach in the main room. He walked out without waiting for response. Clara turned to the children. Shall we begin? Emma's expression was pure stone. We'll be there when Pa says. 29 minutes later, both children appeared carrying slates and chalk. They sat at opposite ends of the table, as far from Clara as possible. Clara took a breath. Let's start with reading. Emma, what's the last book you read? Don't remember. You don't remember, or you don't want to tell me. The girl's jaw set. Don't remember. A lie, but Clara let it go. Sam, do you know your letters? The boy stared at his slate. I'll take that as yes. Clara pulled out the one book she'd brought, a battered copy of Robinson Crusoe. We'll read together. Emma, you start. I don't want to read that baby book. It's not a baby book. It's about survival on an island. I know what it's about. I read it when I was 8. Then you can help Sam understand it. Emma's eyes narrowed. You want me to teach him? I want you to read together. Turn to chapter 1. For a moment, Clara thought Emma would refuse outright. But the girl opened the book, began reading in a clear, steady voice. She was good, better than good. Her pronunciation was flawless, her pace natural. Sam leaned closer, following along on his own slate, his lips moving soundlessly. They read for 20 minutes. Clara watched Sam's face change as the story unfolded. Fear when Crusoe was shipwrecked, curiosity when he explored the island. The boy was engaged, present in a way he hadn't been at breakfast. Then Emma stopped mid-sentence. "What's wrong?" Clara asked. "Sam needs to use the privy." "How do you know?" "I know." Emma stood, took her brother's hand. "Come on." They left. Clara heard their footsteps, the back door opening and closing. She waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. Finally, she went looking. She found them in the barn. Emma was showing Sam something in the hayloft, a nest with 3 brown eggs. "We're supposed to be in lessons," Clara said. Emma didn't look guilty. "He needed to see the nest. The hen just laid this morning." "You're avoiding lessons." "No. I'm teaching him something useful. How to find eggs, how to tell if they're fresh." Emma's expression was challenging. "That's more important than Robinson Crusoe." "Both are important. Out here, books don't keep you alive." Clara climbed up to the loft, her skirts catching on the ladder. She'd never climbed anything in her life, but she wasn't about to show weakness. "You're right," she said, reaching the top, slightly breathless. "Books don't keep you alive, but they keep you human." "We're already human." "Are you? Because from where I'm standing you look like a little soldier, and Sam looks like a ghost." Emma's face flushed. "You don't know anything about us." "Then tell me." "Why? So you can feel sorry for us, so you can write about the poor frontier children in your diary." "I don't keep a diary, and I don't pity you." Clara sat on the hay, ignoring the dust on her dress. "I'm trying to understand you." "Why?" "Because understanding is the first step to helping." Emma laughed bitter. "You can't help us. Nobody can." Sam moved closer to his sister, his small hand finding hers. Clara looked at them, 2 children holding on to each other because they had no one else. Her throat tightened. "You know what I think," she said softly. "I think you're the bravest children I've ever met. You survived something terrible. You kept going when most would have broken. But bravery doesn't mean you have to keep surviving alone." "We're not alone. We have Pa." "Do you, because he seems as lost as you are?" The words hung in the dusty air. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She blinked away furiously. "Pa's doing his best." "I know, but sometimes best isn't enough." They sat in silence, 3 people who'd all lost everything perched in a barn loft, while chickens scratched below. Finally, Emma said, "Sam don't like reading out loud. It makes him anxious." "Then he doesn't have to." "And I don't like baby books." "What do you like?" The girl hesitated. "History, about wars and revolutions and people who changed things." "I can teach you history." "Real history, not just dates and names." "Real history, the kind with blood and betrayal and bravery." Something shifted in Emma's expression. Not quite trust, but maybe the beginning of curiosity. "We should go back," she said. "Pa checks on lessons sometimes." They climbed down together. This time, when they returned to the table, Emma opened the book without being asked. It was a small victory, but Clara would take it. By noon, Clara's head pounded and her voice was hoarse. Teaching 2 children with vastly different abilities and needs was like juggling knives. One wrong move, and everything fell apart. But they'd made progress. Emma had grudgingly engaged with a discussion about the American Revolution. Sam had drawn surprisingly detailed pictures of Robinson Crusoe's island. When Clara dismissed them for the midday meal, Emma actually said, "Thank you, ma'am." 2 words. But they felt like a medal. Joe had left lunch on the stove, beans and cornbread. Clara served the children, then took her own plate to the porch. She needed airspace a moment to think. She found Jack instead leaning against the porch rail. "How'd it go?" he asked. "They're bright, Emma especially." "I know. She needs advanced materials, books beyond what I brought." "I'll order some from the catalog." Clara hesitated. "Mr. Reeves, Jack, can I ask you something?" "Depends on the question." "Why now? Why hire a teacher after 3 years?" Jack was quiet for a long moment. "Because Emma's starting to look at me like I'm failing her. And maybe I am. I don't know how to be enough for them, father and mother both. I thought if I could give them education structure, maybe that would be something." "They don't need structure. They need healing." "And you think you can give them that?" "I think I can try." Jack turned to face her fully. "You came here desperate for work. That's fine. But don't pretend this is about saving my children. You needed a job. I'm giving you one. That's the arrangement." His words stung because they were partially true. She had been desperate. She did need the work. But something had changed in that barn loft. Looking at Emma's defiant tears and Sam's silent fear, Clara had felt purpose click into place. "You're right," she said. "I needed work. But your children need more than a teacher. They need someone who sees them as more than broken things to be fixed." "They're not broken." "No, they're wounded. And wounds need tending, not ignoring." Jack's jaw clenched. "You've been here 1 day. And in 1 day, I've seen more than you have in 3 years. The words came out harsher than she intended. Jack's expression went cold. "Watch yourself, Mrs. Thornton. You work for me." "Then let me do my work. Let me teach them more than reading and arithmetic. Let me teach them how to be children again. By filling their heads with stories and nonsense. By showing them the world is bigger than their pain." Jack stepped closer, his presence suddenly overwhelming. "The world out here is pain. The sooner they learn that, the better they'll survive. Survival isn't living. It's all we've got." They stood inches apart, two stubborn people locked in a battle neither could win. Clara felt her heart hammering, but refused to step back. Finally, Jack said, "1 month. I gave you 1 month to prove your way works. Don't waste it arguing with me." He walked away, his boots heavy on the porch boards. Clara sagged against the rail, her hands shaking. She'd just challenged a man who could fire her with 1 word: stupid, reckless, but necessary. That afternoon, Clara tried something different. Instead of formal lessons, she took the children outside. "What are we doing?" Emma asked suspiciously. "Science. We're going to study the prairie ecosystem." "The what?" "How plants and animals survive out here, how they adapt." Clara knelt by a clump of buffalo grass. "Everything here has learned to live with heat and drought. Look at this grass, short, tough roots that spread wide to catch any water. It's brilliant adaptation." Sam crouched beside her, touching the grass carefully. "Out here, survival means changing," Clara continued. "Being flexible. Being strong in unexpected ways." Emma crossed her arms. "Is this a lesson about grass or about us?" "Both." The girl almost smiled. Almost. They spent 2 hours exploring, finding insects, examining different grasses, tracking animal prints in the dust. Sam collected interesting rocks, arranging them by size and color. Emma asked sharp questions about ecology and adaptation. For the first time, they looked like children. When they returned to the house, Jack was standing in the yard talking to another man, older, weathered, wearing a suit too fine for ranch country. "Mrs. Thornton," Jack called. "Come here, please." Clara approached, suddenly conscious of the dust on her skirts, the grass in her hair. "This is Thornton Pierce," Jack said. "He owns the land north of here." Pierce's eyes assessed her with unsettling intensity. "So you're the new teacher?" "I am." "Interesting choice, Reeves, bringing a woman out here alone." Jack's expression hardened. Mrs. Thornton's employment is none of your concern. Everything that happens on your land is my concern, especially when it affects property values. Pierce smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The railroad's coming through, Jack. This region is about to grow. We need to present a civilized front, not have unmarried women living with widowers. Clara's a widow. She's here to teach my children. That's all. That's all, is it? Pierce looked at Clara. And you, Mrs. Thornton, you're comfortable with this arrangement? Perfectly comfortable. Even though tongues are already wagging in town, the preacher's wife is very concerned about the moral implications. Heat rushed to Clara's face. I don't care what people think. You will when you need their respect. Out here, reputation is currency. Pierce turned back to Jack. I'm just saying, Reeves, there are better ways to handle this. If you need a teacher, hire a man. Or send the children to town for schooling. My children stay here. Then marry the woman. Make it respectable. The words hung in the air like gun smoke. Jack's voice was deadly quiet. Get off my land, Pierce. I'm trying to help. Now. Pierce's smile sharpened. Suit yourself, but don't say I didn't warn you when the community turns against you. He rode away, leaving tension thick as summer heat. Emma's hand found Clara's. Pa, is Miss Clara going to have to leave because of what people say? No. But Mr. Pierce said, I don't care what Pierce says. He's been trying to get me to sell this land for 2 years. This is just another angle. Jack looked at Clara. You all right? Fine. You're shaking. She was. Not from fear, but anger. I've been called worse things by better people. Something like respect flickered in Jack's eyes. Come on inside. Joe's got supper ready. But as they walked to the house, Clara felt the weight of what Pierce had said. She'd thought coming out here meant escaping judgment, but judgment followed women everywhere. That evening, Joe pulled Clara aside while washing dishes. Don't let Pierce rattle you, Joe said. He's all talk. Is he? Because it sounded like a threat? It was, but not the kind you think. Joe scrubbed a pot with unnecessary force. Pierce wants this land. He's been circling Jack for years trying to buy him out. Jack won't sell. So Pierce is trying other tactics, make Jack's life difficult, turn the community against him, force him to leave. Why does he want the land so badly? Railroad. Pierce knows something about the route that the rest of us don't. If the line comes through here, land values will skyrocket. Joe dried her hands. Point is, this ain't about you or your morals. This is about money and power. You're just collateral damage. Clara set down a plate carefully. What happens if Pierce succeeds? If the community does turn against Jack, then Jack loses everything. His land, his livelihood, his children's future. Because of me. Because of greed. Don't confuse the two. But Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she'd brought trouble to this family. Later, unable to sleep, she found herself back in Sarah Beth's room, staring at the few possessions left behind: a hairbrush with strands of blonde hair still caught in the bristles, a small music box that didn't play anymore, a daguerreotype of a young woman with laughing eyes. I'm not trying to replace you, Clara whispered to the ghost. I'm just trying to help. The ghost didn't answer, but the room felt less hostile. The next morning brought the first real test. Clara was teaching multiplication when hoofbeats thundered into the yard. Through the window, she saw 3 men on horseback. Jack appeared from the barn, his hand resting on the gun at his hip. Emma, Clara said quietly, take Sam upstairs. What's happening? I don't know, but go. For once, Emma didn't argue. She grabbed Sam's hand and fled. Clara moved to the window watching. The lead rider was young, maybe 25, with a cocky smile that made her skin crawl. Reeves, he called. Heard you got yourself a lady teacher. We come to meet her. You've got no business here, Wade. Now that ain't neighborly. We just want to say howdy to the new schoolmarm. The lady's busy. Ride out. See, that's where you're wrong. Wade dismounted, his friends following. Mr. Pierce sent us. Says he wants to make sure the teacher's qualified. Wouldn't want some unfit woman corrupting young minds. Jack's voice dropped to dangerous levels. Last warning. Leave. Wade laughed. Or what, you'll shoot us 3 against 1? I don't like those odds, Reeves. Clara's hands clenched. This was her fault. Pierce was using her to attack Jack. Before she could think, she was out the door, standing on the porch. Gentlemen, she said, her voice carrying. I'm Mrs. Thornton. You wanted to meet me. All 3 men turned. Wade's smile widened. Well, well, pretty thing, ain't you? I'm a teacher, and you're trespassing. Trespassing? This is open country, ma'am. This is private property, and you've been asked to leave. Wade stepped closer. Maybe we want to assess your qualifications first. Make sure you're proper. Jack moved between them. Wade, I've known you since you were in diapers. Your mama would be ashamed of this behavior. Mama's dead, and Mr. Pierce pays better than shame. He's paying you to harass a woman. He's paying us to protect community standards. Wade's expression hardened. You can't just bring some Eastern widow out here and play House Reeves. It ain't decent. Clara stepped forward before Jack could respond. Mr. Wade, is it? Just Wade. Mr. Just Wade, I'm not playing house. I'm employed as a teacher. I have a contract, a salary, and separate quarters. Everything is entirely proper. That's not what it looks like. Then perhaps the problem is your perception, not my behavior. Wade's face reddened. You calling me a liar? I'm calling you mistaken. One of the other men laughed. Wade shot him a glare. You got a smart mouth, lady. I have an educated mouth. There's a difference. Jack's hand tightened on his gun. Clara, go inside. No. Clara. I won't hide while men threaten me. She looked at Wade directly. If Mr. Pierce has concerns about my employment, he can file a formal complaint. Otherwise, you're just bullies trying to intimidate a woman. And I don't intimidate easily. Wade stepped closer. Too close. Maybe you should. Jack moved fast, one moment, standing still the next, pressing his gun barrel against Wade's ribs. Touch her, and I'll drop you where you stand, Jack said quietly. The yard went silent. The other 2 men reached for their guns, but Joe appeared from the barn with a rifle. I wouldn't, she said pleasantly. I can drop both of you before you clear leather. Wade's eyes darted between Jack and Joe. This ain't over. Yes, it is. Jack pressed the gun harder. You ride back to Pierce and you tell him this Clara Thornton is under my protection. Anyone who threatens her threatens me. And I protect what's mine. The words sent a strange flutter through Clara's chest. Wade stepped back carefully. You're making a mistake, Reeves. Won't be my first. Now get gone. The 3 men mounted and rode out, kicking up dust. When they were gone, Jack turned to Clara. What the hell were you thinking? I was thinking they were here because of me. I wasn't going to hide. You could have been hurt. So could you. I can handle Wade Tucker and his friends. So can I. They stared at each other, adrenaline still crackling between them. Finally, Jack said, You're either the bravest woman I've met, or the most foolish. Both. I told you that already. Despite everything, he almost smiled. Go check on the children. I need to make sure they're gone. Clara found Emma and Sam huddled in Sarah Beth's room, her room. Emma had her arms around her brother, her face pale. Are they gone? Emma whispered. Yes. Will they come back? Clara knelt in front of them. I don't know, but if they do, your father and Joe will handle it. They came because of you, Emma said, not accusing, just stating fact. Yes. Mr. Pierce wants Pa's land. He'll use anything to get it. I gathered that. Emma's arms tightened around Sam. Pa won't sell, not ever. This land is all we have left of Mama. Clara's throat tightened. Then we won't let Pierce take it. How you're just a teacher. Teachers can be surprisingly stubborn. For the first time, Emma's lips quirked in something that might become a smile. Pa said the same thing about you. Did he? He told Joe you're trouble, but the good kind. Clara didn't know what to do with that information, so she changed the subject. Sam, are you all right? The boy nodded, but his hands were shaking. Come here. Sam hesitated, then moved from his sister to Clara. She wrapped her arms around him, feeling his small body trembling. You're safe, she whispered. I promise. You're safe. He didn't speak, but he didn't pull away either. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump, the wind rattling windows, the house settling, night birds calling. She was pulling on her robe when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, deliberate. Her heart hammered. She grabbed the only weapon she had, a heavy candlestick, and crept to the door. The footsteps stopped outside her room. Clara gripped the candlestick, ready to fight. The door opened slowly. Jack stood there, a lamp in his hand. You planning to brain me with that? He asked. Clara lowered the candlestick, relief flooding through her. I thought you were Wade. Wade's long gone. I checked the perimeter 3 times. He stepped into the room. I saw your light. Figured you couldn't sleep either. Every noise sounds like hoofbeats. That'll pass. Will it? Jack set the lamp on the dresser. Today was my fault. I should have known Pierce would pull something like this. It's not your fault, it's his. Still, you're here because of me. That makes you my responsibility. I'm not your responsibility. I'm your employee. Out here, it's the same thing. He moved to the window, looking out at the dark prairie. Pierce is right about one thing. People will talk. A widow living alone with a widower, it'll cause problems. Clara's stomach dropped. Are you firing me? No. He turned to face her. I'm saying we need to be prepared. Pierce will keep pushing. The community will get involved. It could get ugly. I can handle ugly. Can you? Because today you nearly got yourself killed trying to prove a point. I was trying to protect you. I don't need protecting. Neither do I. They glared at each other in the lamplight. Finally, Jack said, You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere. Something shifted in his expression, surprise maybe, or respect. Even knowing what you're facing. Especially knowing. Your children need stability. They need to know someone won't run when things get hard. Clara lifted her chin. I've already lost everything once, Mr. Reeves. I'm not afraid of losing again. I'm afraid of not trying. Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he picked up the lamp. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start teaching the children how to shoot. Clara blinked. Excuse me. You said you wanted to teach them survival skills. Out here, shooting is survival. He paused at the door. And you're learning too. Next time Wade Tucker shows up, I want you armed. I don't know how. Joe will teach you. She's the best shot in 3 counties. He looked back at her. You said you could learn anything. Time to prove it. He left, closing the door softly. Clara sat on the bed, processing. Tomorrow, she'd learn to shoot. Tomorrow, she'd step further into this world she barely understood. Tomorrow, she'd prove she belonged here. Or die trying. Joe had Clara up before dawn, a rifle pressed into her unwilling hands. Feels heavier than I expected, Clara said. That's fear talking. Gun weighs the same for everyone. Joe positioned Clara's hands properly. See those cans on the fence? 6 tin cans lined the corral rail, glinting in the early light. You're going to hit all 6 before breakfast. That's impossible. I've never shot anything in my life. Then today you learn. Joe stepped behind her, adjusting her stance. Feet apart, shoulders back. Don't fight the recoil, move with it. And for God's sake, breathe. Clara's hands trembled. The rifle barrel wavered. "Steady," Joe murmured. "Find your target. Breathe out slow. Squeeze, don't pull." The gun kicked hard against Clara's shoulder. The shot went wide, kicking up dust 3 feet left of the nearest can. Again. 6 shots later, Clara had hit nothing but dirt and pride. Her shoulder ached, her ears rang, and frustration burned in her throat. "I can't do this." "Can't or won't. What's the difference?" Joe took the rifle, reloaded it with practiced ease. "Can't means you're physically unable. Won't means you're scared. Which is it?" Clara wanted to lie to claim some physical limitation, but Joe's eyes saw through everything. "Scared," Clara admitted. "Of what? The gun. The noise. Of what comes after. If I learn to shoot, that means I'm staying. That means this is real, the threats, the danger, all of it." Joe handed the rifle back. "It's already real. Gun just gives you a chance to survive it." Clara raised the rifle again. This time, when she fired, the leftmost can jumped and clattered to the ground. "There," Joe said. "Now do it 5 more times." By the time the children woke, Clara had hit 4 cans and developed a bruise on her shoulder the size of Texas. But she could shoot. Not well, but enough. Emma watched from the porch, her expression unreadable. "You looked scared," the girl said. "I was terrified." "But you did it anyway." "That's what bravery is, Emma. Being scared and doing it anyway." Something flickered across the girl's face. Recognition, maybe. Understanding. "Pa wants you to teach me too," Emma said quietly. "To shoot better. Says I need to protect Sam if something happens." Clara's chest tightened. "Nothing's going to happen. You don't know that. Oh, nobody knows that." Emma's voice was matter-of-fact, the tone of a child who'd learned young that safety was an illusion. "Mama thought she was safe, then she wasn't." Clara set down the rifle, moved to where Emma stood. "You're right. I can't promise nothing will happen, but I can promise I'll do everything in my power to keep you and Sam safe." "Why, we're not your children." "No, but I care about you anyway." Emma's eyes filled with tears. She blinked away furiously. "I don't want to care about you. Everyone I care about leaves." "I'm not leaving." "That's what Mama said. The morning the Comanche came, she said she'd never leave us. Then she was just gone." Emma's voice cracked. "So forgive me if I don't believe you." She turned and ran inside before Clara could respond. Joe appeared beside Clara. "Give her time. That girl's got walls 100 feet high." "How do I get through them?" "You don't. You wait until she decides to let you in." Joe picked up the rifle. "Come on. Let's see if you can hit moving targets." The next week passed in a blur of lessons and labor. Mornings meant teaching reading and arithmetic. Afternoons meant learning to ride shoot-rope cattle and a dozen other skills Clara had never imagined needing. Her hands developed calluses. Her skin burned despite the bonnet she wore religiously. Every muscle in her body ached from work she'd never done. But she was changing, getting stronger. The woman who'd stepped off that train 3 weeks ago would barely recognize herself. Jack noticed. She caught him watching her sometimes when she didn't think she'd see, when she was showing Sam how to gentle a nervous horse, or when she was arguing with Emma about the causes of the Revolutionary War. His expression in those moments was complicated. Approval mixed with something else she couldn't name. One evening, he found her on the porch after supper, rubbing her sore shoulder. "Joe's working you too hard," he said. "Joe's teaching me to survive. Still, you don't have to learn everything in a month." Clara lowered her hand. "You gave me 1 month to prove this works. 3 weeks are gone. I need to show results." "You already have." Jack leaned against the rail. Emma's reading more advanced texts. Sam's drawing pictures that actually look like what they're supposed to be. That's progress. But they're not healed. Healing takes longer than 3 weeks. Then why the deadline? Jack was quiet for a moment. Because I needed to know if you'd run. Most do. The last teacher left after Wade Tucker rode by and stared at her too long. The one before that couldn't handle the isolation. You're still here. That tells me what I needed to know. Relief flooded through Clara. So, I'm not being fired. Not unless you want to leave. I don't. Even with Pierce making trouble. Especially then. I don't run from bullies. Jack's lips quirked in something almost like a smile. No, you just lecture them about perception versus behavior. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks. That probably wasn't wise. It was magnificent. The word hung between them. Clara's pulse quickened. Before she could respond, hoofbeats interrupted. A rider approached, fast dust trailing behind him. Jack's hand went to his gun. Inside, now! But Clara recognized the rider. It was Tom, one of Jack's ranch hands. Boss! Tom shouted, pulling his horse up hard. Trouble in town. The preacher's calling a meeting about Mrs. Thornton. Clara's stomach dropped. What kind of meeting? The kind where they decide if you're fit to teach children. Pierce has been stirring things up, saying you're corrupting the morals of the community. Tom looked apologetic. They're demanding Jack bring you to town tomorrow to answer questions. Like hell, Jack said. Jack, you don't show, they'll assume the worst. Could turn the whole town against you. Tom shifted in his saddle. Marshall says it's best to face it head on. Jack's jaw clenched. What time? 2 o'clock. Town hall. After Tom rode off, Jack turned to Clara. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. If I hide, they win. They might win anyway. These church meetings can get ugly. Then I'll get ugly back. Clara straightened her shoulders despite the fear crawling up her spine. I survived Margaret Thornton's judgment for 2 years. I can survive this. But that night, lying in Sarah Beth's bed, Clara wasn't so sure. This wasn't just personal rejection. This was an entire community deciding her worth. And if they found her wanting Jack and his children, would pay the price. The ride to Red River Crossing the next day was silent and tense. Jack drove the wagon, his face carved from stone. Clara sat beside him wearing her best dress, which wasn't saying much. Emma and Sam had stayed home with Joe, much to Emma's protest. I should be there, Emma had argued. I can tell them you're a good teacher. No, Jack had said firmly. You're not being dragged into this. Now Clara wished they'd brought the children. At least then she'd have allies. The town hall was packed. It seemed like every resident within 50 miles had come to witness the spectacle. Clara recognized faces from the mercantile, from the boarding house, from church that first Sunday when she'd attended alone. Thornton Pierce sat in the front row looking satisfied. Reverend Matthews stood at the front, uncomfortable but determined. We're here to address concerns about Mrs. Clara Thornton's employment at the Reeves Ranch. Mr. Pierce has raised questions about the propriety of the arrangement. She's living alone with a man, a woman's voice called out. It's indecent. Jack Reeves is a widower with children who need education, someone else countered. Then send the children to town for schooling. The town don't have a school anymore, Edna. You know that. The room erupted in argument. Clara's hands clenched in her lap. Jack stood. The room quieted immediately. Mrs. Thornton is my employee, he said clearly. She has her own quarters, her own income, and I treat her with the same respect I'd give any professional I hire. If that's not enough for you, that's your problem, not mine. It becomes our problem when it reflects on the whole community, Pierce said smoothly. The railroad is coming, Jack. We need to present a civilized moral front. Having unmarried people living together sends the wrong message. We're not living together. She's living in my house and teaching my children. A distinction without a difference. Pierce stood addressing the room. I'm not questioning Mrs. Thornton's abilities as a teacher. I'm questioning the arrangement itself. It's improper, and it puts both their reputations at risk. Then what do you suggest? Jack's voice was dangerous. Send the children to board in town during the week, or hire a male teacher, or... Pierce paused deliberately. Make the arrangement legitimate through marriage. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara felt like she'd been slapped. That's ridiculous, Jack said. Is it? You clearly value her work. Marriage would solve the propriety problem and give your children a mother. I don't need another wife. The words stung more than Clara expected. Then you need to make other arrangements, Pierce said, because I won't stand by while moral decay takes root in this community. Reverend Matthews cleared his throat. Perhaps we should hear from Mrs. Thornton herself. All eyes turned to Clara. Her mouth went dry. She stood on shaking legs. I came to Texas because I needed work. Mr. Reeves offered me honest employment teaching his children. Everything about our arrangement is proper and professional. You live under his roof, a woman said. I live in separate quarters and maintain my own space. Still, it looks improper. Then perhaps the problem is how you choose to see it, not the reality of the situation. Clara's voice strengthened. I'm a widow trying to make an honest living. Mr. Reeves is a father trying to educate his children. We've done nothing wrong. Except create scandal, Pierce said. The only scandal is the one you're creating by making this public spectacle. Clara turned to face him directly. You don't care about morality, Mr. Pierce. You care about pressuring Mr. Reeves to sell his land. I'm just a convenient excuse. Pierce's expression hardened. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. You've been harassing Mr. Reeves for months, sending men to intimidate us, spreading rumors, now this. Clara's hands stopped shaking. You want his land for the railroad route. This has nothing to do with propriety and everything to do with greed. The room went silent. Pierce's smile was cold. You're very bold for someone in such a precarious position. I'm honest. Perhaps you're not familiar with the concept. Someone laughed. Then someone else. Pierce's face reddened. This meeting isn't about land disputes, Reverend Matthews said quickly. It's about determining if Mrs. Thornton's presence in the Reeves household is appropriate. I say it's not, a woman called out. I say it's Jack's business, another voice countered. The argument resumed, voices rising. Clara felt the room slipping away from her public opinion, turning into a tide she couldn't control. Then the door opened. Emma walked in, leading Sam by the hand. Behind them, Joe carried a rifle. Emma, I told you to stay home, Jack said. And I told you I needed to be here. Emma moved to the front of the room, pulling Sam with her. Her voice rang out clear and strong. My name is Emma Rose Reeves. I am 11 years old, and Mrs. Thornton is my teacher. The room quieted, surprised by the interruption. Before she came, I was angry all the time, Emma continued. I hated everyone and everything because my mama died and nobody could fix it. I took care of Sam and ran the house and pretended I was fine. But I wasn't fine. I was drowning. Clara's throat tightened. Then Mrs. Thornton came. And she didn't try to replace Mama. She didn't try to fix us. She just taught us and listened to us and showed up every day, even when I was mean to her. Emma's voice wavered. She taught me that being smart is good, that asking questions is brave, that maybe someday I won't hurt so much. Tears streaked down the girl's face. And she's teaching Sam too. He drew pictures this week, real pictures that tell stories. He's learning even though he can't talk. She found a way. Sam moved closer to his sister, his hand finding hers. So, you can say whatever you want about propriety and appearances, Emma said fiercely. But Mrs. Thornton is the best thing that's happened to our family in 3 years. And if you make her leave, you're not protecting morals. You're just being cruel. The room was absolutely silent. Then Sam did something nobody expected. He stepped forward away from Emma's protection and walked directly to Clara. His small hand found hers and held tight. His lips moved. No sound came out at first. Then barely a whisper. "Don't go." Clara's vision blurred. 2 words. The first words Sam had spoken in 3 years. "Don't go, Miss Clara." The room erupted. Women gasped. Men murmured. Even Pierce looked stunned. Jack was beside them in 3 strides, dropping to his knees in front of Sam. "Son, you're talking." Sam nodded, his hand still gripping Clara's. "Miss Clara can't leave. She's teaching me words." Jack's eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. He pulled Sam into his arms, holding him tight. Reverend Matthews wiped his own eyes. "I think we have our answer about Mrs. Thornton's impact on the Reeves household." "A child speaking doesn't change the impropriety," Pierce said, but his voice lacked conviction. "It changes everything," the Reverend said firmly. "This woman has done in 3 weeks what doctors couldn't do in 3 years. That's not corruption. That's a miracle." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "I propose we put it to a vote," someone called. "All in favor of Mrs. Thornton continuing her employment." A forest of hands rose. Opposed. Pierce's hand went up. A few others followed, but they were vastly outnumbered. "Motion carries," Reverend Matthews said. "Mrs. Thornton may continue her work without community interference." Pierce stood abruptly. "This isn't over, Reeves." "Yes, it is," Jack said quietly, still holding Sam. "You lost. Accept it and move on." Pierce's eyes were cold. "You're making powerful enemies." "I already had powerful enemies. What's one more?" After Pierce stormed out, taking his supporters with him, the crowd began to disperse. Several women approached Clara, offering quiet apologies and support. "I'm sorry I doubted you, dear," one elderly woman said. "That boy speaking well, that's proof enough of God's work." When they were finally alone, Jack turned to Emma. "You disobeyed me." "Yes, sir." "You put yourself in front of the whole town." "Yes, sir." "You were brave and eloquent, and I'm proud of you." Jack pulled her into a hug. "But don't ever scare me like that again." Emma hugged him back, something Clara had never seen her do. "I had to help Miss Clara. She helped us." Sam tugged on Clara's skirt. When she knelt, he wrapped his arms around her neck. "You came back," he whispered. "I promised I wouldn't leave." "People break promises." "Not me, not to you." They rode back to the ranch as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Sam sat pressed against Clara's side, chattering softly about everything he'd wanted to say for 3 years. Emma sat beside her father, looking exhausted but peaceful. And Jack kept glancing at Clara with an expression she couldn't quite read. When they reached the ranch, Joe was waiting on the porch. "Well," she called. "Sam spoke," Emma shouted, "and the town voted for Miss Clara to stay." Joe's whoop of joy echoed across the prairie. "Hot damn, I knew you'd pull it off." That night, after the children were asleep and Joe had gone to her cottage, Clara sat on the porch steps, too wound up to sleep. She heard the door open, felt Jack sit beside her. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me my son back." Clara's throat tightened. "I didn't do anything special. Just showed him that silence was a choice, not a cage." "However you did it, thank you." Jack was quiet for a moment. Pierce meant what he said. This isn't over. "I know. He'll come after us another way. Harder, probably." "Let him." Jack turned to look at her. "You really aren't afraid, are you?" "I'm terrified, but fear doesn't change what needs doing." "Where did you learn to be so brave?" "Philadelphia. When my husband died and his family threw me out, I had 2 choices, give up or keep going. I kept going. It wasn't bravery. It was just refusal to quit. That's what bravery is, Clara. Not the absence of fear, just the refusal to let it win." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge in the vast Texas sky. Finally, Jack said, "About what Pierce suggested. Marriage. Clara's heart stopped. Jack, I'm not proposing, don't worry. He rubbed his face. But he's right that tongues will keep wagging, and eventually it might cause real problems for the children. What are you saying? I'm saying we might have to consider options, not marriage necessarily, but something that makes this arrangement more acceptable to the community. Clara's chest felt tight. Such as, I don't know, I'll think on it. Jack stood. Get some sleep, tomorrow's a new day. He went inside, leaving Clara alone with her thoughts. Marriage to Jack Reeves. A week ago, the idea would have been absurd. Now it felt less impossible and more inevitable. But it also felt dangerous, because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, Jack had stopped being just her employer. He'd become something else, something she wasn't ready to name. 3 days later, Pierce made his next move. Clara was teaching when Tom rode up fast, his horse lathered with sweat. Jack, we got trouble at the river. Jack emerged from the barn. What kind of trouble? Pierce's men are cutting your fence line and running cattle onto his land, claiming the boundary markers are wrong. Jack's face went hard. How many men? 6 I saw, maybe more. Tom, get the others. We're riding out. Jack turned to the house. Joe, I need you to stay with Clara and the children. Joe appeared already armed. How bad? Bad enough. Lock the doors. Don't open for anyone but me. He was mounted and gone before Clara could protest. Emma stood in the doorway, her face white. Is Pa going to fight them? He's going to stop them, Clara said with more confidence than she felt. What if Pierce's men shoot him? Your father can handle himself. But as the afternoon wore on with no word, Clara's anxiety grew. She tried to keep the children occupied with lessons, but Emma was too distracted, and Sam kept asking where his father was. Finally, as evening approached, hoofbeats thundered into the yard. Jack dismounted, his face grim. Blood stained his sleeve. You're hurt, Clara said, rushing to him. Graze. I'm fine. Let me see. Clara. Let me see. He sighed and let her examine the wound. The bullet had carved a shallow furrow across his upper arm. Painful, but not serious. As she cleaned and bandaged it, Jack said, Pierce's men destroyed 1/2 mile of fence and stole 20 head of cattle. By the time we got there, they were long gone. Can't the marshal do something? Marshal's in Pierce's pocket. He'll claim it's a boundary dispute, say we need to settle it in court. Jack's jaw clenched. Which will take months and cost money I don't have. So Pierce just gets away with it. For now. Jack looked at her. But this is escalating. He's not playing games anymore. He wants this land, and he's willing to destroy me to get it. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Jack's blood on her hands, about Emma's frightened face, about Sam's question. Is Pa going to die like Mama? She was pacing when she heard it glass breaking downstairs. Her heart hammered. She grabbed the rifle Joe had made her keep in her room and crept to the door. Voices. Men's voices. Inside the house. Clara's hands shook. She wasn't ready for this. One afternoon of target practice didn't make her a fighter. But Sam and Emma were down the hall, and she'd promised to protect them. She eased into the hallway. Light flickered below torches or lanterns. Find anything? A voice called. Wade Tucker. Nothing yet. Reeves must keep the deed somewhere else. They were looking for the land deed. If they destroyed it, Pierce could claim disputed ownership. Clara's mind raced. She could wait for them to leave. That would be smart safe. But they'd find the deed eventually. And Jack would lose everything. She moved to the stairs, her bare feet silent on the wood. Below, she could see 3 men rifling through Jack's office. Her rifle felt like it weighed 100 pounds. Then Emma's door opened. The girl stood there in her nightgown, eyes wide. Get Sam and hide, Clara whispered. Don't come out no matter what. Miss Clara. Now. Emma disappeared. Clara heard her wake. Sam heard them scramble under a bed. She descended the stairs slowly, the rifle raised. When she reached the bottom, she called out, "You have 3 seconds to leave this house." The men spun around. Wade Tucker laughed when he saw her. "Look, boys, the schoolmarm's playing soldier." "1," Clara said, her voice steady despite the terror clawing her throat. "You ain't gonna shoot nobody, lady." "2." Wade stepped toward her. "Put the gun down before you hurt yourself." Clara pulled the trigger. The shot went wide deliberately, shattering a lamp beside Wade's head. He yelped and dove for cover. "I said leave. The next shot won't miss." The other 2 men were already backing toward the broken window they'd climbed through. "This ain't over," Wade snarled. "Yes, it is. You tell Pierce if he wants this land, he'll have to kill me for it. And I don't die easy." They fled into the night. Clara's legs gave out. She sat hard on the stairs, the rifle clattering beside her, her whole body shaking. That's how Jack found her when he ran in. He'd been checking the barn when he heard the shot. Clara. What happened? She couldn't speak, just pointed at the broken window, at the scattered papers at the lamp shards. Jack pieced it together quickly. He checked the house, confirmed the intruders were gone, then came back to where Clara sat trembling. "You shot at them," he said. "I scared them off. You could have been killed. They were stealing your deed, your future. I couldn't let them." Jack knelt in front of her, his hands on her shoulders. "Clara, listen to me. Nothing is worth your life. Not this land, not that deed, nothing. Your children are worth it. Their home is worth it." Something cracked in Jack's expression. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, or completely insane. Both. I keep telling you that." Despite everything, he laughed, a short, sharp sound. Then he pulled her into his arms, holding her while she shook. "I've got you," he murmured. "You're safe. I've got you." Emma appeared on the stairs, holding Sam's hand. "Is Miss Clara all right?" "She's fine," Jack said. "She just saved everything we own." "Are the bad men gone?" "For now." "Will they come back?" Jack's arms tightened around Clara. "Probably. But we'll be ready." Later, when the children were back in bed, and Jack had boarded up the broken window, he found Clara still sitting on the stairs. "You should sleep," he said. "Can't. Every time I close my eyes, I see Wade's face." Jack sat beside her. "First time you shoot at someone is always hard. I didn't hit him. You weren't trying to, but you could have. That's what matters." Clara looked at her hands. They'd stopped shaking, but she still felt wrong, like her skin didn't fit right. "I came here to teach children," she said quietly. "Not to fight wars. Sometimes teaching children means fighting for their future. Is this what it's always like out here? This constant threat?" "Not always, but often enough." Jack paused. "Pierce has declared war. It's only going to get worse. Then we fight back." "Clara." "No." She turned to face him. "I'm done being scared. I'm done letting bullies win. If Pierce wants this land, he'll have to go through me." Jack's expression was complicated pride worry, something else she couldn't name. "You realize you're talking about going to war with the richest, most powerful man in 3 counties. I've survived worse." "Have you?" Clara thought about Philadelphia, about Margaret Thornton's cold cruelty, about losing everything and having to rebuild from nothing. "Yes," she said. "I have, and I'm still standing." Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Pierce suggested marriage as a solution. I dismissed it, but maybe he was right." Clara's heart stopped. "What? Not a real marriage. A paper marriage. Something to make you legally part of this family, give you claim to the land, make it harder for Pierce to attack us through you." "Jack, think about it. As my wife, you'd have legal standing. Pierce couldn't question your presence here. And if something happened to me, you'd have guardianship of the children." You're talking about a business arrangement. Yes. Same as you working for me, just with legal protections. Clara's chest felt tight. And what about you? What do you get from this? Peace of mind, knowing my children are protected if Pierce's thugs get lucky. It made logical sense. A practical solution to a dangerous problem. So why did it feel like her heart was breaking? I need to think about it, she said. Take your time. It's a big decision. But as she climbed the stairs to her room, Clara knew she'd already decided. Because somewhere in the past 3 weeks, Twin Oak Ranch had stopped being just a job. It had become home, and she'd fight for it with everything she had, even if that meant a loveless marriage to a man who saw her as a convenience. She'd survived worse. She'd survive this too. Clara found Jack in the barn at dawn, saddling his horse with movements too deliberate, too controlled. I'll marry you, she said. His hands stilled on the cinch. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Jack turned to face her. This is just paperwork, Clara. Protection for you and the children, nothing more. I understand. We keep separate rooms, separate lives. This changes nothing between us. Each word felt like a small cut. I understand, she repeated. We can go to town today. Judge Morrison can do it quick. What about the children? They stay here with Joe. This is legal business, not a celebration. Of course not. Why would it be? Clara nodded. I'll get ready. She was halfway to the house when Jack called after her. Clara, thank you for doing this. She didn't turn around. Couldn't let him see her face. You're welcome. 2 hours later, they stood in Judge Morrison's dusty office. The judge was 70 if he was a day with rheumy eyes and hands that shook as he opened the marriage registry. You're certain about this, Reeves? Morrison asked. Second marriages often don't take. It's not that kind of marriage. What kind is it then? Practical. Legal protection for Mrs. Thornton and my children. Morrison's eyes shifted to Clara. You understand what you're agreeing to, ma'am? Yes. Marriage is binding, even practical ones. I understand. The judge sighed. Your funeral. Raise your right hands. The ceremony lasted 3 minutes. No flowers, no witnesses, no rings. Just words spoken over a desk covered in legal papers and coffee stains. I now pronounce you man and wife. Sign here. Clara's hand trembled as she wrote her name. Clara May Reeves. Not Thornton anymore. Reeves. Jack signed next, his signature bold and sure. That's it then, Morrison said. You're legally wed. God help you both. They walked out into the harsh sunlight. Clara felt nothing and everything simultaneously, married again, but not really. Protected, but not safe. Bound to a man who saw her as a solution to a problem. We should tell the children, Jack said. How, surprise, I married your teacher for legal purposes. Something like that. They'll have questions. Then we answer them. Jack helped her into the wagon. We tell them the truth, that this protects our family. Our family. The words shouldn't have hurt, but they did. The ride home was silent. When they pulled into the yard, Emma was waiting on the porch, her face tight with worry. Where were you? Joe wouldn't tell us anything. Jack climbed down. We need to talk. All of us. Where's Sam? In the barn. I'll get him. 5 minutes later, they sat around the kitchen table. Emma looked suspicious. Sam looked confused. Joe looked knowing. Clara and I got married today, Jack said bluntly. Emma's face went white, then red. What? It's a legal arrangement to protect everyone. With Pierce threatening us, Clara needed official standing in this family. So you married her. Emma's voice rose. Just like that. Emma. No. The girl stood her chair, scraping. You said you'd never marry again. You said Mama was the only one. You promised. Jack's expression cracked. This is different. How? How is it different? Because I don't love her. The words hung in the air like poison. Clara felt each one land sharp and cutting. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Then why marry her at all? To protect her. To protect you and Sam. To make sure if something happens to me, you're all taken care of. I don't need protecting, Emma shouted. I need my father to stop replacing Mama with strangers. She ran from the room. Sam followed, silent tears streaming down his face. Joe stood. I'll go to them. Shit. When they were alone, Jack dropped his head into his hands. That went well. Clara's throat was too tight to speak. I shouldn't have said that, Jack muttered. About not loving you. That was cruel. It was honest. Still cruel. Clara forced herself to stand. I'll go talk to Emma. She won't listen. Maybe not. But I have to try. She found Emma in the hayloft, the same place they'd first really talked. The girl was crying into her knees, her whole body shaking. Go away, Emma said. Clara climbed up anyway. No. I hate you. I know. You're stealing my father. I'm not. He's still completely yours. Then why did he marry you? Clara sat down, choosing her words carefully. Because your father is terrified. Terrified of losing this ranch, losing you and Sam, losing everything he's built. And I'm a way to make you all safer. By pretending to love you. We're not pretending anything. Your father was very clear this is business, not romance. Emma looked up, her face blotchy and red. Then why marry at all? Because as his wife I have legal rights. If Pierce tries to take you and Sam, I can fight him in court. If something happens to your father, I can keep the ranch running. I become your legal guardian. I don't want a legal guardian. I want my mama back. Clara's eyes burned. I know, sweetheart. I know. And I want Pa to love someone for real, not just marry them for paperwork. Emma's voice broke. He loved Mama so much. He should have that again. Maybe someday he will. Not with you, though. He said so. He said he doesn't love you. The words hurt just as much the second time. No, not with me. Emma wiped her eyes. Do you love him? The question caught Clara off guard. Did she? She barely knew Jack. This was a business arrangement, nothing more. But her heart hammered when he was near. Her hands sought him in crowds. She dreamed about his rare smiles. I don't know, she admitted. I care about him, about all of you. Caring isn't loving. No, but sometimes it's the start of it. Emma was quiet for a long moment. If you hurt him, I'll never forgive you. I won't. And if he hurts you... Clara managed a weak smile. Then I'll survive. I'm good at surviving. That evening, Joe pulled Clara aside while making supper. Jack's an idiot. He was honest. Honest and idiotic aren't mutually exclusive. Joe slammed a pot onto the stove. That man's been half in love with you for weeks, and he's too stubborn to admit it. Clara's heart lurched. That's not true. Isn't it? I've seen how he looks at you when he thinks nobody's watching. Like you're water and he's been dying of thirst. You're imagining things. Am I? Then why'd he give you Sarah Beth's room instead of the guest room? Why does he check on you 3 times a night to make sure you're safe? Why does he smile more in the past month than he has in 3 years? Because I'm helping with the children. Because he's falling for you, and it scares him to death. Joe pointed a wooden spoon at Clara. That man lost his wife in the most brutal way possible. He's spent 3 years convincing himself he can't love again, that he doesn't deserve it. Then you show up and mess up all his carefully built walls. Clara's hands trembled. Even if that were true, he made his feelings clear today. He lied today. To Emma, to himself, to you. Question is, are you going to let him keep lying? Before Clara could answer, hoofbeats thundered into the yard. Multiple riders coming fast. Jack was out the door instantly, his gun drawn. Clara grabbed the rifle and followed. 6 men on horseback. Wade Tucker led them, his face twisted with rage. "Heard congratulations are in order," Wade called. "Reeves finally made an honest woman of the school teacher." "Get off my land, Wade." "Can't do that." "See, Mr. Pierce is mighty upset about this development. Says it smells like fraud marrying a woman just to keep property rights. My marriage is none of Pierce's business. It is when it affects his legal claims. He's filing with the territorial court. Fraud, he's calling it. Says you'll both end up in prison." Clara's stomach dropped. Prison. "That's ridiculous," Jack said. "Our marriage is legal and legitimate." "Is it? You got married this morning. No courtship, no engagement, just boom married. Looks mighty suspicious to a judge. Then let Pierce take it to court. He'll lose." Wade's smile was cruel. "Maybe. But in the meantime, the territorial marshal has some questions. We're here to escort you both to town." "Like hell." "Wasn't a request, Reeves." Wade's hand moved to his gun. "You can come peaceful or in chains. Your choice." Clara stepped forward. "If we go with you, what about the children?" "They stay here. We're not monsters." "You're something worse," Joe said from the doorway, her rifle aimed steady. "You're cowards who hide behind a rich man's money." Wade's eyes narrowed. "Stay out of this, Joe." "Can't do that. These are my people. Your people are about to spend the night in jail while the marshal sorts this mess out. Unless you want to join them." Joe looked at Jack. He gave a tiny shake of his head. "Fine," Jack said. "We'll go. But the children stay untouched. You give me your word, Wade." "You got it." "Your word means nothing," Clara said. "How do we know you won't come back for them?" Wade's face reddened. "I may work for Pierce, but I ain't a child killer. They'll be safe." Jack turned to Joe. "Don't let them out of your sight. If anything happens, I know what to do." Joe's grip tightened on her rifle. "I'll protect them with my life." Emma appeared in the doorway, Sam clutching her skirt. "Pa, what's happening?" "I have to go to town for a bit. You mind Joe, you hear? Pa, no." "Emma." Jack's voice was firm but gentle. "This is important. I need you to be brave." The girl's chin trembled, but she nodded. Sam broke free and ran to Jack, wrapping his arms around his father's waist. "Don't leave us again." Jack knelt, holding his son tight. "I'm coming back. I promise." "Mama promised too." The words broke something in Jack's expression. "I'm not, Mama. I'm not leaving you. This is just overnight, maybe less." "Time's up," Wade said. "Let's go." Jack kissed Sam's head, touched Emma's cheek, then mounted his horse. Clara climbed onto the wagon they'd brought, her hands bound in front of her. "Is this necessary?" she asked. "Mr. Pierce's orders. Can't have you running." As they rode away, Clara looked back at the ranch. Emma stood frozen on the porch, Sam beside her, both children watching their father leave again. Joe's rifle was still raised, a silent promise of protection. The ride to town took 2 hours. Wade's men were silent professional, which somehow made it worse. This wasn't random violence. This was calculated legal maneuvering. The Red River Crossing Jail was a small stone building behind the marshal's office. Marshal Tucker Wade's uncle, Clara, realized with sinking dread, was waiting. "Jack Reeves. Clara Reeves." The marshal's voice was flat. "You're being held pending investigation into marriage fraud." "On whose authority?" Jack demanded. "Territorial court. Judge will be here in 3 days to hear the case." 3 days? You can't hold us that long without charges. I can hold you for a week if I want. You'll get your hearing. Till then, you're guests of Red River Crossing." They were separated immediately. Jack was put in one cell, Clara in another on the opposite side of the building. She couldn't even see him. The cell was small, dark, and smelled of old sweat and despair. A cot with a thin blanket, a bucket in the corner, nothing else. Clara sat on the cot and tried not to panic. 3 days. Emma and Sam would be terrified. The ranch work would pile up. and Pierce would have time to plan his next move. Night fell. The jail was silent, except for occasional footsteps in the marshal's office. Clara was drifting into uneasy sleep when she heard a voice low and urgent. "Clara, you awake?" Jack, from his cell across the building. "I'm here," she called back softly. "You holding up?" "As well as can be expected. You." "I've been in worse places." A pause. "I'm sorry you're in this because of me." "I'm in this because of Pierce. Don't take his blame." Silence. Then, "What I said earlier, about not loving you. Emma's right, that was cruel." Clara's heart hammered. It was honest. It was a lie. The words hung in the darkness between them. "Jack, I know this marriage was supposed to be practical, legal protection, nothing more. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being just paperwork." His voice was rough. "You made my children smile again. You stood up to armed men. You learned to shoot in a week and face down the whole town without flinching. How am I supposed to not fall for that?" Clara couldn't breathe. "You said you'd never love again." "I said a lot of things. I was wrong about most of them." "Jack, we barely know each other. I know you're brave and stubborn, and you'd fight a wildfire with your bare hands if it threatened someone you cared about. I know you sing to Sam when you think nobody's listening. I know you let Emma win arguments sometimes just to build her confidence. I know you're terrified of spiders, but you'll catch them instead of killing them." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "That's not enough to build a life on." "No, but it's a start. We're in jail, Jack, accused of fraud. Your children are home alone with only Joe to protect them. This is the worst possible time for confessions. It's the only time. If Pierce wins, if the judge rules against us, I might not get another chance." His voice dropped to almost a whisper. "So I need you to know. This stopped being fake the moment you stepped between me and Wade's gun. Maybe before that. I don't know when it happened, only that it did." Clara pressed her hands to her face. "I can't do this right now. I can't fall apart when we need to survive." "Then survive with me. Not just beside me, but with me. Partners. For real." "I don't know how." "Neither do I. But we'll figure it out." A door slammed. Footsteps approached. "Shut up in there!" the marshal barked. "No talking between prisoners." Silence fell again. But Clara's heart was racing, her mind spinning. Jack loved her, or thought he did, or wanted to. And she. God help her, she wanted to believe him. Morning brought unexpected visitors. The door to Clara's cell opened, and Eleanor Pierce stepped in. "Mrs. Reeves," she said quietly, "we need to talk." Clara stood confused. "Why are you here?" "Because I'm the reason you're in this mess, and I need to make it right." Eleanor glanced at the marshal's office. "My father doesn't know I'm here. If he finds out, he'll lock me up too." "Then why come?" "Because I'm tired of watching him destroy good people." Eleanor's hands twisted together. "The marriage fraud charges are based on a letter I wrote. Father dictated it, said it was just documenting facts. I didn't realize he'd use it to have you arrested." "What did the letter say?" "That you and Jack showed no signs of affection. That the marriage happened suspiciously fast. That it appeared to be a legal maneuver rather than genuine union." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. "I wrote exactly what he told me. I didn't think I didn't know that he'd use it against us." "I'm so sorry." Clara studied the younger woman. Eleanor looked haunted, trapped in her own way. "Why help us now?" "Because I overheard Father and Wade talking last night. They're not stopping with jail. If the judge rules the marriage fraudulent, Father's filing to take custody of the children. Claims Jack's an unfit father who married a stranger just to avoid losing property." Ice flooded Clara's veins. "He can't do that." "He can try. And with his money and influence, he might succeed." Eleanor stepped closer. "But I can stop him. I can testify that I wrote that letter under duress, that Father manipulated me. It won't clear you completely, but it'll damage his case enough to create doubt. Your father will disown you. I know. You'll lose everything. I don't care. Eleanor's voice strengthened. I'm engaged to a man I don't love because father arranged it for business reasons. I've watched him bully and threaten and destroy for years. I'm done being part of it. Clara's throat tightened. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still have to convince the judge. Eleanor glanced toward the door. I have to go before father notices I'm gone. The hearing is tomorrow at noon. I'll be there. After she left, Clara called across to Jack's cell. Did you hear that? Every word. Pierce is going for the children. We can't let that happen. We won't. Jack's voice was hard as iron. No judge is giving my children to that snake. But as the hours crawled by, Clara's fear grew. Pierce had money, power, influence. What did they have? A hastily arranged marriage and the testimony of his rebellious daughter. It might not be enough. The next day they were escorted to the courthouse in chains. The building was packed. Apparently the whole town wanted to witness the spectacle. Pierce sat in the front row looking confident. Wade stood behind him smirking. The judge was a stern-faced man named Blackwood, brought in from Austin specifically for this case. We're here to examine the legitimacy of the marriage between Jackson Reeves and Clara Thornton Reeves, Blackwood announced. Mr. Pierce has filed charges of fraud. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves, how do you plead? Not guilty, Jack said firmly. The prosecutor, a slick lawyer Pierce had brought from Dallas, stood. Your Honor, I'll prove this marriage was contracted solely for legal purposes, with no genuine intent to form a marital union. The evidence is damning. They met and married the same day, showed no public affection, maintained separate quarters, and explicitly stated the arrangement was for the benefit of the children and property protection. That doesn't prove fraud, Jack's court-appointed lawyer argued weakly. It proves intent. Intent is everything in fraud cases. The prosecutor called witnesses. Wade testified about hearing Jack say the marriage was just paperwork. The preacher's wife testified about the town meeting where propriety was questioned. Even the hotel clerk testified that Jack had never bought flowers or gifts typical of a courting man. Each testimony was a nail in their coffin. Then Eleanor Pierce was called to the stand. The courtroom buzzed. Pierce's face went red, then white. State your name for the record, the judge said. Eleanor Margaret Pierce. And your relationship to the plaintiff. He's my father. Thornton Pierce stood. Your Honor, I object. Sit down, Mr. Pierce. Your daughter has the right to testify. Blackwood turned to Eleanor. Proceed. Eleanor's voice shook but didn't break. I wrote a letter describing the Reeves marriage as suspicious. My father used that letter as evidence of fraud, but I wrote it under duress. Father dictated every word, told me exactly what to say. I didn't observe any of it firsthand. That's a lie, Pierce shouted. The judge's gavel cracked down. Mr. Pierce, one more outburst and I'll have you removed. Eleanor continued. I've watched my father manipulate legal proceedings for years. He doesn't care about marriage fraud. He cares about getting Jack Reeves's land for the railroad. This entire case is manufactured to force a sale. The prosecutor jumped up. Your Honor, this is speculation. It's the truth, Eleanor said, and I can prove it. Father has maps in his study showing the proposed railroad route. It goes directly through the Reeves ranch. He's been buying up surrounding land for months, but Jack won't sell. So Father decided to destroy him instead. The courtroom erupted. Pierce was on his feet shouting. Wade looked panicked. The prosecutor was demanding Eleanor be held in contempt. Judge Blackwood's gavel rang out repeatedly. Order, I will have order. When the room quieted, Blackwood looked at Eleanor with something like respect. Young lady, do you understand the implications of this testimony? Yes, sir. I'm accusing my father of conspiracy and fraud. And you stand by it? I do. Pierce's voice was deadly quiet. You're no daughter of mine? Eleanor's chin lifted. Good. I'd rather be disowned than complicit. The judge called a recess. Clara and Jack were led to a small room to wait. The moment the door closed, Clara turned to Jack. Eleanor just sacrificed everything for us. I know. If we lose, it was for nothing. We're not losing. Jack's hands found hers despite the chains. Not the children, not the ranch, not us. Jack, I meant what I said last night. All of it. Whether this marriage started fake or not, it's real now. At least for me. Clara's eyes burned. For me too. The confession slipped out before she could stop it. But it was true. Somewhere between shooting at intruders and defending his children in town meetings, she'd fallen for Jack Reeves. He pulled her close, chains and all, and kissed her like a man who'd been drowning and finally found air. When they broke apart, Clara whispered, "We're going to win this." How do you know? Because we have something Pierce doesn't. Something real worth fighting for. The door opened. They were led back to the courtroom. Judge Blackwood looked stern. I've reviewed the evidence and testimony. This case has more holes than a shot-up fence. Mr. Pierce, I find your claims of fraud unsubstantiated and suspect. Furthermore, Miss Pierce's testimony raises serious questions about your motivations. Pierce's face went purple. As for the Reeves marriage, Blackwood continued, unusual timing doesn't constitute fraud. Marriages have been contracted for practical reasons since time immemorial. What matters is intent to honor the commitment. Mrs. Reeves, do you intend to honor your marriage vows? I do, Your Honor. Mr. Reeves, absolutely. Then this court finds no evidence of fraud. The marriage stands. Charges dismissed. The gavel fell. Clara's knees went weak. Jack caught her, holding her upright as relief crashed over them both. Pierce was already storming out, Wade following. Eleanor stood alone, looking terrified and free simultaneously. Clara went to her. Thank you for everything. I'm unemployed and disowned now, Eleanor said with a shaky laugh. So if you know anyone hiring... We do, Jack said. Twin Oak Ranch always needs help, if you're willing to work. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that very much. They rode home as the sun set, painting the prairie in shades of gold and crimson. Eleanor sat between them, quiet but peaceful. The marshal had removed their chains with muttered apologies. When Twin Oak came into view, Emma and Sam were standing in the yard waiting. The moment the wagon stopped, both children ran. Pa! Emma crashed into Jack's arms. You came back. I promised, didn't I? Sam wrapped himself around Clara. Miss Clara, you're really married to Pa now. I really am. Does that make you our mama? Clara's throat closed. If you want it to. Sam looked at Emma. The girl hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yeah, Emma said quietly. We want it. That night, after Eleanor was settled in the guest room and the children were asleep, Clara found Jack on the porch. Hell of a week, he said. Hell of a month. He pulled her close, his arms solid around her. I know this marriage started as protection, but I'd like it to become something more, if you're willing. What are you asking, Jack? I'm asking if you'd consider moving into my room, being my wife for real, not just on paper. Clara's heart hammered. That's a big step. I know, and there's no rush. But I want you to know this isn't convenience anymore. This is choice. I'm choosing you, Clara. Every day, I'm choosing you. She turned in his arms, looking up at him. I'm choosing you too. He kissed her, then slow and deep and full of promise. And when he lifted her into his arms and carried her inside, Clara didn't protest. This was real now. Her marriage, her family, her home. And she'd fight to keep it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Pierce wasn't finished. The railroad was still coming, and Eleanor needed protection from her father's wrath. But tonight, Clara Reeves was exactly where she belonged. In her husband's arms in their home, with their children sleeping safe down the hall. She'd survived everything life threw at her. And she'd keep surviving, keep fighting, keep loving. Because that's what you did for family. And this was hers. Clara woke to the smell of smoke. Not the friendly scent of the morning cook fire, but something sharper, more dangerous. She was out of bed before her mind fully caught up, her bare feet hitting the cold floor. Jack was already at the window, his body tense. The barn. Clara's heart stopped. Orange flames licked at the barn's eastern wall, small now but growing. "Get the children to the root cellar," Jack said, already moving. "Now." "Jack." "Now, Clara." She ran down the hall, throwing open Emma's door. "Emma, wake up! Fire! Get Sam and go to the root cellar." Emma was up instantly, sleep vanishing. "Where's Pa?" "Fighting the fire. Go! Don't come out until we tell you it's safe." The girl grabbed her brother and fled. Clara heard the cellar door slam just as she reached the porch. Jack, Joe, and Eleanor were already working the pump, filling buckets in a desperate chain. The horses were screaming in the barn. "The animals!" Clara shouted. "I'll get them!" Eleanor called back, already running. "Eleanor, no!" But the girl was gone, disappearing into the smoke. Clara joined the bucket line, her arms burning as she hauled water. The fire was spreading faster than they could fight it, flames climbing the dry timber like hungry demons. Then Eleanor emerged, leading 2 panicked horses, her face streaked with soot. She went back in. "Eleanor!" Clara screamed. A crash inside, the sound of wood splintering. Eleanor stumbled out, dragging a 3rd horse, just as part of the roof collapsed behind her. She fell hard, coughing violently. Clara ran to her, pulling her clear. "Are you hurt?" "3 more horses," Eleanor gasped. "Inside. The roof's coming down. You can't—" But Jack was already moving a wet blanket over his head, plunging into the inferno. Time stopped. Clara counted heartbeats, each one an eternity. Then Jack burst out with 2 horses, their coats singed. He shoved them toward the corral and turned back. "Jack, no!" Clara grabbed his arm. "The barn's lost. Don't die for 1 horse." "That's Thunder. He saved my life during a stampede. I'm not leaving him." He pulled free and dove back into the flames. Clara's hands clenched into fists. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch smoke pour from every opening. The barn groaned. The remaining roof timbers sagged. "Jack!" she screamed. "Jack, get out!" Thunder burst through the door, riderless, wild-eyed. Then Jack right behind him, his shirt on fire. Joe tackled him, rolling him in the dirt, smothering the flames. The barn's roof collapsed with a roar that shook the ground. Sparks shot into the night sky like hellish stars. Jack lay on his back, gasping. His hands were blistered, his face burned red. "You idiot!" Clara sobbed, falling to her knees beside him. "You could have died." "But I didn't." He tried to smile and winced. "Thunder's safe." "Your hands. I'll heal." He struggled to sit up. The house. Safe. The fire didn't spread. The children. In the cellar. Jack's eyes closed in relief. "Good. That's good." Joe appeared with her medical kit. "Let me see those hands." While Joe worked, Eleanor approached, still coughing. "I'm sorry. I should have been faster." "You saved 5 horses," Jack said. "That's more than most would have done." "I should have saved them all." "You did what you could. That's all any of us can do." Dawn revealed the full damage. The barn was a smoking ruin, nothing left but charred timbers and ash. They'd saved the animals and the house, but the structure itself was gone. Emma and Sam emerged from the cellar as the sun rose. Both children ran straight to Jack, clinging to him despite his burns. "I'm all right," he assured them. "Just a little singed." "The barn's gone," Emma whispered. "Barns can be rebuilt." "Was it an accident?" Jack's jaw tightened. "No." Clara found the proof an hour later, an oil-soaked rag near the barn's foundation, carefully placed to catch and spread. "Pierce," she said. "Can't prove it," Joe said. But yeah, Pierce. They buried the evidence before the marshal could arrive and claim it was their own carelessness. No point giving Pierce ammunition. Tom rode in mid-morning with news. Marshal's on his way, wants to investigate the fire. Let him investigate, Jack said. Won't find anything useful. There's more. Pierce is filing a petition with the territorial governor. Claims you're a danger to the community, unstable, violent, unfit to own land near the proposed railroad route. Clara's stomach dropped. He's trying to force a sale through the government. That's the idea. If the governor declares your land a public hazard, he can seize it and auction it. Pierce will be the only bidder. Jack's burned hands clenched. How long do we have? Hearings in Austin. 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prove we're not a hazard while Pierce burns down our property. Jack's laugh was bitter. How do we fight that? We go to Austin, Clara said. We testify. We bring witnesses who'll vouch for us. Against Pierce's money and lawyers. Against his lies. The truth has to count for something, Joe snorted. The truth counts for nothing against Gold Girl. You should know that by now. But Clara straightened her shoulders. Then we make it count. We make it so loud and clear that even the governor can't ignore it. The next 3 weeks were a blur of preparation and work. Jack's hands healed slowly, making every task agonizing. They had no barn for the animals, so they built a temporary shelter using salvaged wood and canvas. Eleanor proved invaluable working alongside them without complaint. She could rope cattle, mend fences, and shoot as well as most of the ranch hands. Your father raised you well, Clara observed one evening. Father raised me to be an ornament. Joe taught me to be useful. Eleanor wiped sweat from her face. I've learned more in 3 weeks here than in 20 years in his house. Do you regret leaving? Not for a second. Even if we lose everything, at least I'll lose it honestly. Sam had taken to following Eleanor everywhere, his constant shadow. The girl was patient with him, teaching him to whittle and braid rope. Emma remained wary, but Clara caught her watching Eleanor with something like envy. She's brave, Emma said one night. So are you. Not like her. She gave up everything to do what's right. You give up your childhood to take care of your family. That's just as brave. Emma was quiet. Then, do you think we'll lose the ranch? Clara wanted to lie to promise everything would be fine, but Emma deserved honesty. I don't know. Pierce is powerful, but we're going to fight with everything we have. What if fighting isn't enough? Then we'll lose honestly, and we'll rebuild somewhere else. Clara pulled Emma close. But we won't lose each other. That's the one thing Pierce can't take. The hearing in Austin was held in the Capitol building, a grand structure that made Clara feel small and out of place. The gallery was packed with spectators, politicians, and Pierce's hired supporters. Governor Richards presided, a sharp-eyed man in his 60s who looked like he'd heard every lie ever told. Pierce's lawyer presented, first painting Jack as a violent, unstable rancher whose property attracted trouble. He had witnesses all paid. Clara was certain who testified to fires, gunfights, and general chaos at Twin Oak Ranch. The proposed railroad route will bring prosperity to Texas, the lawyer concluded, but it requires stable land ownership. Mr. Reeves has proven incapable of maintaining order. His property should be seized for the public good and sold to responsible parties. Responsible parties meaning Pierce. Then it was their turn. Jack's lawyer, a young man named Harrison, who'd taken the case pro bono, stood nervously. Governor Richards, members of the committee, we contest every claim made by the plaintiff. Mr. Reeves is a decorated former Texas Ranger who's built one of the most successful ranches in the region. The troubles on his land are not of his making, but result from systematic harassment by Thornton Pierce. That's a serious accusation, Richards said. I can prove it. Harrison called Eleanor to testify. Eleanor walked to the stand with her head high. She'd dressed simply but well-looking, every inch the respectable young woman she'd been raised to be. State your name for the record. Eleanor Margaret Pierce. A murmur ran through the crowd. Thornton Pierce's face went red. "Miss Pierce, what is your relationship to the plaintiff?" "He's my father." "And yet you're testifying against him." "I'm testifying for the truth." Eleanor's voice was steady. "My father has spent years trying to force Jack Reeves to sell his land. When Mr. Reeves refused, father resorted to intimidation, property destruction, and false legal claims. The barn fire was arson. I can prove it." She produced letters from Pierce's files, correspondence with Wade Tucker discussing plans to encourage Jack to sell, instructions to create incidents that would make the ranch look dangerous. Pierce was on his feet. "Those are private documents that show conspiracy and fraud," Eleanor said. "I took them from Father's study before I left. I knew he'd deny everything, so I needed proof." Richards examined the letters, his expression darkening. "Mr. Pierce, these appear to be in your handwriting. They're taken out of context. They explicitly discuss burning property and falsifying reports. What context makes that acceptable?" Pierce had no answer. Harrison called more witnesses. Reverend Matthews testified to the community meeting, explaining how it had been manipulated by Pierce. Townspeople spoke about Wade Tucker's harassment. Even the hotel clerk admitted he'd been paid to testify against Jack. The evidence mounted until even Pierce's expensive lawyers looked nervous. Then Harrison called Clara. "Mrs. Reeves, you married Jack Reeves under unusual circumstances. Can you explain why?" Clara took a breath. "I married him for protection initially, but it became real. He's a good man trying to protect his children and his land from a man who wants to destroy him for profit. You're aware you could lose everything if this hearing goes against you?" "Yes." "And yet you're here fighting." "Of course. You don't abandon family when things get hard. You fight for them. Even if you lose. Especially then." Clara looked at Pierce directly. "Mr. Pierce thinks he can buy anything, land people justice. But he can't buy integrity, he can't buy love, and he can't buy the bond that holds a family together. We'll fight him until there's nothing left to fight with. And then we'll start over and build again, because that's what real strength is, not money or power, but the refusal to break." The gallery erupted in applause. Richards's gavel cracked down, but he was smiling. "Mrs. Reeves, you may step down." The decision took 2 hours. Clara and Jack waited in an antechamber holding hands despite the sweat. "Whatever happens," Jack said, "I want you to know marrying you was the best decision I ever made. Even if we lose the ranch. Especially then, because I'll still have you and the children. That's what matters." Finally, they were called back. Governor Richards looked stern. "This case has revealed troubling evidence of corruption and conspiracy. Mr. Pierce, your actions are a disgrace to Texas and to the business community. I'm recommending you be investigated for fraud, arson, and attempted theft." Pierce's face went white. "As for the Reeves property," Richards continued, "I find no evidence of instability or danger warranting seizure. The petition is denied. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves, your land remains yours." They'd won. Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel Jack's arms around her as relief crashed over them both. Pierce was escorted out by marshals still protesting. His lawyers fled. Eleanor stood alone, tears streaming down her face. Clara went to her. "You did it. You saved us." "I just told the truth." That took more courage than anything else today. Clara hugged her tight. "Thank you for everything." The ride home took 3 days. They traveled slowly, savoring the victory, the freedom, the future stretching before them. When Twin Oak Ranch came into view, Emma and Sam were waiting in the yard with Joe. Both children ran screaming with joy. "We won!" Emma shouted. "We won!" Jack confirmed, scooping her up despite his healing hands. "The ranch is ours. Pierce is going to jail. It's over." Sam wrapped himself around Clara. "You came back. Always. I'll always come back." That night, they celebrated with Joe's best cooking and stories that would be told for years. Eleanor laughed more than Clara had ever seen, the weight of her father's shadow finally lifting. Later, when the children were asleep, Clara found Jack checking the horses. "Thunder's doing well," he said, stroking the big stallion's neck. "You saved him." "We saved each other." Jack turned to face her. "About that barn. We need to rebuild." "I know. I was thinking bigger this time. Room to expand. Maybe take on a few more horses, start breeding." Clara smiled. "Planning for the future. Planning for our future." He pulled her close. "I talked to Harrison. He said Eleanor needs work, suggested she could study law with him in Austin. Become a legal clerk." "Would she want that?" "I asked her tonight. She cried." Jack's expression softened. Apparently, being the first female law clerk in Texas appeals to her. "She'd be brilliant at it." "She would, which means we need to hire more help for the ranch. Already planning to spend money we don't have. Planning to build an empire." Jack kissed her forehead. "With you beside me, I can do anything." Clara's throat tightened. "Jack Reeves, are you getting sentimental?" "Maybe. Is that a problem?" "Not even a little." They stood together in the starlight, listening to the horses breathe and the wind whisper across the prairie. 3 months later, Clara woke to different news, the kind delivered by her own body, by mornings spent sick and afternoons spent exhausted. She told Jack one evening as they sat on the new porch of the rebuilt barn. "I'm pregnant." His eyes went wide. "You're sure?" "As sure as I can be." Joy and terror warred across his face. "Sarah Beth." "I'm not Sarah Beth. I'm stronger, and we have Joe and Eleanor and the whole town if we need them." Clara took his hand, placed it on her still flat stomach. "This baby will be born into a family that fought for every inch of what we have. That's legacy, Jack. Real legacy." He pulled her close, his voice rough. "I'm terrified." "So am I. But we'll face it together." "Together," he agreed. Emma took the news with surprising maturity. "A baby means I'm going to be a big sister for real." "You already are," Clara said. "No, I mean I'll have someone to teach everything to. How to ride, how to read, how to be brave when you're scared." Emma's eyes were bright. "I can do that." Sam was more direct. "Will the baby talk?" "Eventually, yes." "Good. I'll teach them words. I know lots of words now." He did. Sam talked constantly these days, making up for years of silence. The baby came in spring, a daughter with Jack's gray eyes and Clara's dark hair. They named her Sarah Eleanor Reeves, honoring both the mother who came before and the sister who'd saved them all. Eleanor held her namesake with tears streaming down her face. "She's perfect." "She's family," Clara said. "Just like you." 2 years later, the railroad did come through Red River Crossing, but it curved around Twin Oak Ranch, following a route that benefited the whole community instead of one man's greed. Pierce died in territorial prison, unmourned and alone. Emma left for college in Austin, the first of what would be many Reeves children to get formal education. She wrote weekly, her letters full of legal theories and dreams of changing the world. Sam took over the horse breeding program his gentle way, with animals making Twin Oak famous for quality stock. And Clara taught reading to every child within 50 miles, building the school the town had lost, this time with Jack's money and Eleanor's legal expertise, ensuring it would never burn again. On the 5th anniversary of the day, Clara stepped off that train. She and Jack stood on the porch, watching the sunset paint the prairie in gold. "Do you ever regret it?" Jack asked. "Coming here, marrying a stranger, fighting wars that weren't yours?" Clara thought about Philadelphia, about the woman she'd been desperate, defeated, convinced her life was over. Not for a second. "This life we've built, messy and hard and beautiful, it's worth everything I've survived. Even Pierce, even jail, even almost losing it all. Especially that, because it taught me something important." She turned to face him. "I came here broken, thinking I needed to be saved. But I didn't need saving. I needed purpose. I needed family. I needed home. Jack pulled her close. You gave me all those things too. Then we saved each other. Behind them, Sarah Eleanor squealed as Sam lifted her onto Thunder's back. Emma's latest letter sat on the table full of news about law school and a young lawyer she'd met. Joe was in the kitchen teaching Eleanor's replacement, another young woman fleeing her father's control, how to make biscuits. This was legacy, not land or money or power, but the lives they'd changed, the family they'd built, the empire they'd created from nothing but stubborn love and refusal to quit. Clara had stepped off a train 5 years ago with 14 cents and nowhere to go. Now she had everything. A husband who loved her fiercely, children who called her mama without hesitation, a ranch that stretched to the horizon, a community that valued her, a purpose that got her up every morning. She'd come here desperate and found destiny. She'd married a stranger and found her soulmate. She'd faced down bullies and discovered she was braver than she'd ever imagined. And every single day she chose this life, this man, this family, not because she had to, because she wanted to, because all of this was worth fighting for. Come on, Jack said, pulling her toward the house. Supper's getting cold, and you know Joe hates that. Clara laughed and followed him inside into the warm light and love and chaos of home. She'd survived everything life threw at her. Widowhood, rejection, poverty, violence, loss. And she'd done more than survive. She'd thrived. Because that's what real strength was. Not the absence of fear or pain or struggle, but the choice to keep going anyway, to keep loving anyway, to keep building anyway. Clara May Reeves had learned that lesson the hard way, and she'd spend the rest of her life teaching it to anyone who needed to hear it, starting with her own children, ending with the empire they'd build together, an empire not of land or cattle or money, but of love, fierce, stubborn, unbreakable love that would outlast any threat, any enemy, any challenge. That was the real legacy of Twin Oak Ranch, and it would endure for generations. Because Reeves women didn't break. They just got stronger.